Everybody, and welcome to the 2024 iteration of the iTree Open Academy. We're really glad you're able to join us. And we recognize that maybe some of you have checked in for a few of these sessions in the past, but we're always really glad to see such a wide assortment of folks from around the country, from around the globe, and from such a wide variety of organizations and sectors. But we're really happy you're able to spend some time with us. And even if you've checked in with us previously, we are really, psyched once again to bring you this academy. It is very much intended to be a living representation of iTree and the variety of tools that we make available and the tree science that they can make available for the projects that y'all have happening on the ground. So again, this is always a great opportunity for us. And as people continue to join us, I'm going to go ahead and just take care of some housekeeping here at the top. But we will also today have a full introduction to the iTree suite of tools and where we're going to go with the rest of these Academy sessions. So again, hello, my name is Krista. I'm a part of the iTree support team with the Davey Institute. And I work I'm based at the Philadelphia Urban Field Station with the Forest Service. So I'm coming to you from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania today. Again, we absolutely view this academy as an opportunity to help you discover the different tools that iTree is composed of, but also to let you know about new offerings and updates that have come down along the way. But we know that our audience is, we like to keep it, we like to have a nice broad audience. We know that you come to us as scientists, as practitioners, as educators, stewards alike. And just like all of the trees that we know you guys are working to manage, we see the iTree set of tools as something that can grow to accommodate all of these changing environments and needs with respect to whether it's, resilience or other canopy growth features that you're trying to accomplish where you are. This is actually, we're hoping to, continue to build knowledge and community around what we know tend to be recurring and fundamental questions that come up with iTree. But do know that in the interest of presenting something as concise and as inclusive and as all-encompassing as we can, we will be trying to, we can always answer questions. If not, while we're in these sessions, you are welcome to email us at any time. We're going to, let you know how to reach us through regular support channels. But just in terms of a little bit of background for how this series of sessions is going to work, this is, our primary learning series for our audience of users. We're trying to keep this accessible as easily as possible via the live webinars as well as video recordings. Each of these sessions will be recorded and made available after we're finished via the iTree YouTube channel. And if you, haven't checked it out before, there are also a number of other features on the YouTube channel that we'll talk about too for video resources that might help you with, again, some of those sticking questions or recurring questions that we know frequently come up. Each of these webinars and each of the topics that we cover will basically put together a little worksheet for everybody. So we'll have those exercises available basically as a way for you to return to a tool or to make your own discoveries when you have time, as you have time to play with it. So it can walk you through some of the things to think about. That does include today, even though we're basically running an introductory session today. But by way of connecting each other, not only connecting all of you to the members of our team, as well as, we're hoping that this is an opportunity for all of you to maybe check in with some people you know or haven't talked to for a while, if you see them, feel free to, have that be a common way to, check in with each other, but to also learn from each other. We know that many people are using iTree to accomplish many different things. And it's always our hope that some of the things we bring you through these sessions will help trigger your curiosity, but also help you better understand which iTree tools are central to your work and what they can offer. We do know that a lot of people here today are interested in the CEUs that will be offered. Do be aware that we will continue to talk about this throughout. We're going to be offering certificates of participation in those CEUs once the entire series, once the Academy series has completed. So even if you are only able to check in with us for one or two of the live sessions, which is how we'll be recognizing participation for the live session CEUs, those will all be issued once we have wrapped up this series. And again, I know I was indicating, yeah, if you see other people that you know or who are doing things that you're interested in, feel free to connect with any of the users that you can see are here. But also, we are encouraging people today to check in with questions via the chat window. We have a pretty strong team of people. I'm going to introduce a couple of them in a second who are here with us today to help answer some questions in real time. We will do our best to get to as many of them as we can. In the event that there are any burning questions or a long list of questions that we don't have time to get to, we will follow up with a sheet of Q&A, but we will also we will make an effort at the end of each of these sessions to have the team remain on for about 10 to 15 minutes, just so that if there are others who have a minute to, hang out to actually get a specific question answered, we will try to accommodate that. But otherwise, we respect people's time. And when 2 o'clock comes around, if we haven't gotten to all of the Q&A, there will be multiple ways for you to follow up with us and vice versa. So just in terms of our general schedule of events, not just for today, but looking forward, hopefully many of you have already checked out the page dedicated to the Academy with this year's on the iTree website, and we will be updating this page as the sessions continue. So what you'll be able to see is the schedule of events. Right under each of the dates and the topics that we're offering, we will include, presenter materials. That's where you'll find the link to the recording and the video following each session. And it's also where you'll be able to catch up on, again, those exercises or other resources that we will post there that we feel, might help you make sense of the tools that we're introducing for that day. But do remember that you can email us at info@itreetools.org at any time. And true story, it's usually going to be one of us who you're about to meet that actually is on the other end of that email. So we're not a huge group, but we're always happy to entertain questions large and small. So I really do briefly want to take just a minute to introduce the iTree team that's behind most of these seminars. So again, I'm Krista, based out of Philadelphia. We're going to have Jason Henning with us, also based out of Philadelphia, at the Urban Field Station. We have Jay Hepler with us, who is actually, she's a natural resource specialist who works on our hydro research suite. She is coming to us today from Syracuse, but she's also very quick on the fly with answering some questions. You'll hear from her today, I'm sure, in the chat window. We also have Anna Castillo with us today, who is the newest member of our iTree support team, but she's off and running and is going to bring us some information today about the history of iTree. She's also a natural resource specialist, and she's based out of Knoxville. We're also really pleased today and throughout this session to have two Forest Service partners, namely Dave Bloniars, who comes to us from Springfield, Massachusetts. He's a research scientist with the Northern Research Station of the Forest Service. We're also joined by Eric Greenfield, who is with us he's a forester also with the Northern Research Station, but he works closely with the Forest Inventory Analysis Program, which is one of our main research arms within the Forest Service, where we work with them to put this data together. So I just wanted all of them to have a chance to say hello. We'll be hearing more from them as the weeks roll along. And before we actually launch into our first introduction, I do want to welcome someone who's going to join us for a quick hello today, and we're really lucky to hear from him. He's been integral with the Forest Service Urban and Community Forestry Division, which is another strong partner for this particular seminar, and working with state and private forestry locations and outposts, as well as other urban and community foresters, to help bring this iTree information, not just free and available, to the public, but also so that we can get it further and actually help the work that's happening on the ground. But I want to quickly introduce Robert Seaman, who comes to us again as a natural resource specialist. But he's with Urban and Community Forestry. He comes to us having been the state coordinator in Louisiana for many years. And for at least a decade, he was directing the work that came out of Baton Rouge Green, also in Louisiana. We're really fortunate that he was able to take a few minutes to join us today. Having said that, I know that he's a fellow advocate for, he knows that Go Tigers is actually spelled with an X. So Robert, it's great to see you. Thanks again for being able to join us, and hello.
Oh, this is great. Thanks. I want to thank everyone who's attending these seminars. I feel like I was first exposed to iTree in the early 2000s, so it's been a while now. It's come a long way. Our urban and community forestry program, traditionally, we've always relied on iTree as a scientific foundation for advocacy and outreach and education. But I'm really excited more and more recently, programmatically it's working its way into a lot of what we do. We can effectively quantify and project the benefits, the truths, right? That so many of us have always intrinsically understood, that trees make the developed places we live, healthier and happier and more comfortable. It's just really great to be able to evidence the tangible benefits that trees provide as infrastructure, right? And that really helps justify the work we do for the National UCF program. So big thanks to the iTree team. And thank you guys for taking time to learn about all these great tools to help you in your practice.
Aces. Thank you very much, Robert. It's good to see you. And yes, in the interest of continuing to spread the word, we're happy to have a lot of the, hopefully representatives from across the states and from across community forestry here as well. I'm going to let Anna Castillo get us started, but one of the things I wanted to, as we're talking about urban and community forestry here in the States, we do want to acknowledge that we know that we are seeing today a lot of our international friends who are, dedicated users and learning how to incorporate iTree and the information about tree benefits in their international and respective locations outside of the United States. We want to acknowledge that. We do, though, want to let you know that there will be conversations, and we're going to introduce tools throughout this seminar that are utilizing data that is currently only available for the United States. So we just wanted to say that from the outset. But there will be opportunities for us to at least, engage in and mention when tools are applicable worldwide or across the globe. And we'll let you know sometimes when we're looking at tools that just aren't there yet. But we're always glad to talk to our international users at any time. In addition, you're always welcome to continue to join us here and to reach out through the website. But so, yeah, having said that, and trying to keep this all-encompassing and inclusive, Anna, you are on. Take us away. You're muted, Anna. But we could, yes,
Sorry.
we can see. Yeah,
Okay,
no, you're good. And we can see your slides loading.
Okay.
Perfect.
Does it look okay? Great. Okay. All right. Well, thanks again for the introduction. I'm Anna Castillo again with the support team. And it is just so awesome to have so many, almost, what do we have, 300 almost people here from all corners of the United States and the world. And you guys just bring such good energy here. But yeah, I'm going to get us started with us today with a plan for what we're going to talk about to get you all, a good introduction into iTree. So first, I'm going to talk about what is iTree for those of you that are brand new to the iTree world, and go over what results you can get from using iTree. And I'm going to do just a quick overview of the suite of tools that are part of iTree. As I mentioned, as you'll learn, it's iTree has a whole suite of different things that you can achieve depending on your expertise and what you're looking to do in your projects. And then Jason will take over and give us an introduction to the science behind iTree, to help you understand where the data's come from, where the methods are coming from, so that when you run your project or use MyTree, you can talk to people about what these numbers mean and feel confident about what you're presenting. And then we're going to have a MyTree demo, which is our easiest to use tool in the iTree toolbox. And we're going to talk about some examples of that, about folks who've used iTree in their communities that will hopefully get you started thinking about how you might use iTree in your community. So first, what is iTree? iTree was born out of the idea or the hope to put U.S. Forest Service urban forest science into the hands of users. So over almost 20 years ago, this idea of putting together the iTree platform formed, where the U.S. Forest Service was doing research, and we had folks from SUNY SF and other researchers doing work related to urban forest, and they really wanted to make the science accessible to the general public, to community planners, to people on the ground doing work related to urban forest science. So that is where the idea of the iTree platform arose, and now this has actually grown to a whole cooperative initiative, which includes, of course, the U.S. Forest Service, Davey Tree Expert Company, the Arbor Day Foundation, and the Urban and Community Forestry Society, the International Society of Arboriculture, Casey Trees, and SUNY SF. So as you can see, a lot of partners, a lot of people putting in a lot of work to bring iTree to different communities. And of course, iTree is totally free. So all the tools are free to use domestically, internationally, as well as the technical support that we provide. So as Chris was mentioning, we have the support team, which is all pretty much here today. And we have an inbox that we monitor. So if you've contacted us before, now you could put a face to the name, as well as the office hours that we've mentioned. And again, that is all totally free. iTree is continuously improved. So we have a team of developers that works to create new tools to improve the interface of the iTree tools, and also to incorporate all that new science. So obviously urban forest science and ecosystem service science is always changing. It's a very dynamic field. So we work to incorporate that into iTree as quickly as we can validate it and integrate it into our products. So we have obviously folks who've been using iTree since the beginning and folks who are brand new. So, that is really important, I guess, just to know that it is always changing. So sometimes, if you ran a project 5 years ago and you ran it today, you would get a different number because the science changed. And, that's how we stay on top of things. So, So really the vision for iTree is to improve forest and human health and forest and city resiliency through easy to use technology that engages people globally in enhancing forest management. So for us, we think iTree's role is really important in connecting forest and people. So in an increasingly urbanizing world where over 80% of people in the United States live in urban areas, and over 50% globally, you know, we need to think about how to manage and invest in the trees that where people work and live. So we think iTree is a really powerful tool for that, for educating people about the benefits of trees and just getting connected to the resources in their communities. And you know, this is a theme that you'll see through as you learn to the tools about how you can use it in your community. So how does, oh, I think my notes are up here, but you'll see it. You know, how does iTree work? So the framework is related to the structure, function, and value. So in order to do an iTree tool analysis, you first need to quantify the structure. So that is the structure of your urban forest canopy. So your urban forest. So there's two ways to go about this. The first is a top-down approach. So that is typically using aerial imagery. So looking at your urban forestry canopy cover, the location of your trees, the number of trees. Or you could do a bottom-up approach. So that would include more going out into the field or into your backyard to measure the tree's diameter, the DBH, the height, identifying the species. So then iTree can calculate the function of those trees. So what are those trees doing? So for example, once you get the structure of the trees, you can calculate the leaf area index, which affects how much photosynthesis the trees can do, or how much precipitation the trees can intercept and prevent from becoming runoff. So iTree then can calculate the function and then the value of these trees. And so typically this is, you know, we can quantify it in monetary amounts. So, you know, I mentioned preventing water from becoming runoff that goes into the storm drains that has to be treated. So we can put a dollar value on that, or how much energy a homeowner can save by planting a tree that provides shade in the summer. So again, we could put a dollar value on that, but we can also put, you know, present it in a different way. So this example here is from an output from our trees. So this is analysis for Baltimore, Maryland, where it took, you know, the trees in that community offset the emissions of almost 8,000 gasoline-powered cars, or the trees can improve air quality to the extent that they can decrease asthma incidence by over 1,000 and prevent the loss of 124 school days and 20 work days. So, you know, again, demonstrating the value, but in different ways that might speak, you know, better to the audience that you're interested in, whether that's teachers, public health officials, the general public, you know. Yeah, so again, but to think about the structure, function, and value is the overarching framework across the different tools that you'll see in the iTree suite. So what does iTree estimate? So the there are four core ecosystem services that, sorry, okay, you can all hear me okay, right? Okay, I just saw something in the chat about being muted. Okay, awesome. So the four core ecosystem services are first, energy. So as I mentioned, how much trees can impact cooling and heating for a home or buildings or for a whole community. So in the summer, the trees provide shade, and in the winter, they can provide a windbreak, so preventing loss from heat from your home. And then in the next one is stormwater. So that is through the form of avoided runoff. So as I mentioned before, preventing water from entering the storm drains that then a municipality would have to treat. And that is, again, through the function of the trees, through evaporation, transpiration, and intercepting this water. Next is carbon dioxide. So that is both through the storage of carbon by the trees, so in the biomass, by in the trunk, in the branches, in the leaves of the tree, but also through sequestration of this greenhouse gas. So as the tree lives and photosynthesizes, it's taking out carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere, and so that has a value to society as well that iTree can estimate. And finally, air quality. So trees can improve air quality in different ways, depending on the pollutants. So the leaves can actually physically intercept some of the pollutants, the particle matter in the air, so like soot or fine dust in the air. Or leaves can also have gas exchange with some of these pollutants, and we can both quantify that amount, but also the benefit to human health, thanks to some models developed by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. So again, these are the 4 core ecosystem services that you'll see, through the different tools that you use as part of the iTool suite. And we know that there are a lot more benefits of trees. They improve mental health. They improve, the aesthetics of a community. They have been shown to reduce crime even. But as you can imagine, these sort of benefits are harder to quantify, to put a dollar amount on. Whereas with these, we have well-validated models that are scientifically sound, that we feel we can integrate into iTree, and that they can work in a variety of cases, since we have such a wide user base. So now I'm going to go over the tools that are part of the iTree suite of tools. So the first is iTree Eco, and that is really our flagship powerhouse tool. So it is where a lot of the newest science goes first, but it is also one that has the highest learning curve. So because of this, we're actually going to save it towards the end of the academy. And but like I said, this is the powerhouse. So all the tools in the iTree suite of tools are sort of based on this. So it's just that this is, where the first updates go, and then they get updated to the rest of the tools. And this is the only one that has to be installed on your desktop, whereas the other ones are all web-based tools that can be used on any device, iPhone, Android, whatever. It's just this one. And then the next are the core individual tree tools. So these are the ones, again, from the bottom up approach, that you need to get measurements of DBH or species to get the desired outputs. And that includes MyTree, which we'll see a quick demo on, planting, design. And then the next one are the core canopy tools, which is our trees, canopy, and landscape. And those are, again, we're working on the aerial imagery or LiDAR assessments to get those estimates for tree benefit values. And then I'm also going to mention the utilities, which are some accessory tools, if you will, to the iTree core tools. And these we're not going to cover in the academy, but I wanted to mention them because they are useful, especially for a lot of the international users. If you're submitting, for example, data like pollution or weather data, you would use database. So you can learn about them more on our website. But I wanted to take the time just to mention them here. And as we've seen, we have a ton of international users. And so, as Krista mentioned, not all the tools are equally available for all countries. But the ones that are, to some extent, are iTree Eco, MyTree, and Canopy, and a lot of the utilities. So we have a web page that kind of discusses a little bit more about the international application of iTree. Maybe Jay can drop that link in the chat. And of course, we can talk more in the through the email or after the end of this session about specifics. But yeah, just wanted to throw that out there if that helps with planning. If maybe the landscape one is one that is not applicable to our international students here today because that's very US specific data layers that it's working with. But yeah, so that is the core tools, and we will learn about them in the next coming weeks. But I am going to pass it off now to Jason, and he is going to share more about the background and the methods behind iTree to help you understand where these numbers come from.
Thanks, Anna. And just get my presentation in the front. Hopefully you can see my first slide there. Great. Okay, so yeah, it's great to see so many folks here. We were closing in on 300, and I saw a lot of folks from Indonesia and Korea and the Philippines, and I have the task of talking about the science here. So I know it's either very late or very early for those people. So I will try and make this as interesting and exciting as possible. But what we're trying to do really when we talk about the science behind the iTree tools is kind of set a foundation for what we're going to talk about in the coming weeks. So we're not doing a whole lot of demos in this first session. It's much more kind of high level intro. But as soon as we get to the next session, we're going to do live demos of at least 3 tools. And then every session after that will include demos until we get up to our very last session. So as Anna mentioned, iTree Eco is really the engine that drives all of our other tools. It's where all the science goes first, and then it sort of makes its way out into those other tools. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how we go from the data you put into iTree Eco to getting tree benefits and how that relates to some of our other tools. So when you start to do an iTree project, if you're working with any of our individual tree-based tools, you have to provide some measurements, some data about those trees. At the very least, you have to provide DBH and species, and you'll see this across all of our individual tree-based tools. Those 2 variables, DBH, that's the diameter at breast height, diameter at 4.5 feet above the ground of the trunk, and the species of the tree. If you have crown measurements, you can provide those, and you'll get more accurate estimates because you've got more precise data going into the models. All of our tools are also typically going to ask for something about tree health. Healthier trees grow faster. They've got more leaf surface area. They provide more benefits. If you want to estimate energy, we have to know how close you are to a building. A tree out in the middle of a field, really far from any buildings, it's not providing a lot of energy effects, helping with heating and cooling. So we have to know how close you are to a building and the direction to that building. So we need some building interaction data. And then we need light availability. How much light does your tree get? Again, that's going to affect things like how quickly your tree grows, which influences the ecosystem services, the tree benefits those trees provide. So it's all going to start with you providing some sort of data about your trees. And from there, you're going to feed it into the model. So you take that field data, and it can be on one tree, or it can be on lots of trees. And again, we're starting with iTree Eco because that's kind of where all the science goes first and makes its way into the other tools. So you can take all that field data that you've collected and put it into iTree Eco, but there's a whole lot more data in iTree Eco sort of behind the scenes there. So this includes things like city data. What's the population of your city? There's more people there to breathe cleaner air that's related to trees. You're going to have higher benefits for air pollution. So things about the human population are important from that city data. Knowing where your city is, how long is your growing season based on your latitude? That's going to affect how long your trees have leaves on. So you're going to get ecosystem services for longer or shorter periods of time. So there's a whole lot of city data that goes into these models. Then we have air pollution data. So everywhere that iTree Eco works, we have local air pollution data, and that's going to be hourly data for 5 or 6 pollutants for every day of the year. So that's over 8,000 measurements just on air pollution data for each one of those air pollutants throughout a calendar year. So we have that everywhere again that iTree works. We also have weather data. This is going to be things like wind speed and cloud cover and how much rainfall you get. Obviously, rainfall is going to affect things like stormwater runoff, one of those core ecosystem services that Anna mentioned a little bit ago. So we have all that data. That weather data is also going to be local based on wherever you are, and it's going to be hourly again. So every hour of the day, we're going to have a measurement of that weather data. All that goes into what we call our location data. And all these boxes that are in light blue here, these are not things that you need to provide. These are things that are in our location database. So we collect these for all the locations where iTree Eco works. And you'll see that anytime you use one of the iTree tools, it's going to want to know where you are so it knows what data to pull. So all that's going on in the background You don't have to do anything except provide this kind of yellow box field data over here, but know that all that's going on in the background of iTree Eco. Beyond that, we've also got a species database. So why is that important? Different species are going to grow at different rates. Some species get really big out in the landscape and some are relatively small. Those are going to provide different levels of benefits. Some are evergreen. They're going to have leaves or needles on all year round. That's going to provide different benefits from a deciduous tree, which is only going to have leaves on for some of the year. So all those things are stored in our species database. Currently, that database is over 8,000 trees. And again, it's one of these blue boxes, so you don't need to provide that data. Just so long as you're telling us what species you have, it'll know where to grab that information from the species database. So when we talk about the tools continually being updated, this database, the location database and the species database, that's a lot of where those updates happen. So just recently, we updated to 2021 pollution and weather data. So you've got more recent data, especially here in the US, to pull on for your estimates. So that's one of the kind of continuous updates that happens within iTree. So from all that information, the data you provide, that field data, that location database, we can estimate those ecosystem services. Again, this is iTree, so we start estimating that structure. Then we can estimate the function. Those are those ecosystem services, that air quality, hydrology, energy, and carbon. Those 4 core ecosystem services will show up in all our tools. iTree Eco actually has a few more when we get there around session 5. We'll talk about those. And then we put a monetary value on it. And all this comes from the iTree Eco model. So that's just kind of real high level how iTree Eco works. And from there, we can actually do forecasting. We can grow those trees over time, grow that structure over time, and see how those benefits change over time as well. And we can do things like account for tree mortality, which becomes really important, as you'll see with some of the tools we're going to explore in the coming weeks. So again, just to kind of show you how these tools relate, again, iTree Eco is really our driving tool that forms where all our science goes first and informs all the other tools. So we've got those individual tree-based tools that we talked about, MyTree, planting and design. All those are built on what we call the iTree engine. So essentially, we simplify iTree Eco down so that we can really quickly estimate tree benefits for maybe an individual tree or a few trees. And we can do all that in a web browser where iTree Eco actually has to be installed software on a Windows computer. So again, iTree Eco is driving all of those estimates. So it's important to keep that in mind. So that's how it works for the individual trees. Then we have those canopy tools. Those are the top-down tools. We're looking at how much canopy cover we have and the benefits it provides. That's still based on iTree Eco. Essentially, what we do is we take iTree Eco, we run it for every county, if you're here in the US, or similar geography, if iTree Canopy works outside the US. We get an estimate for the benefits provided by trees in your county per unit of tree cover. So if you say, I've got 1 acre of tree cover, we know that 1 acre where you live, based on the weather and air pollution and all those things and the trees that are there, maybe it stores 1,000 pounds of carbon per acre each year. So that's how we come up with those cover multipliers that feed into those canopy-based tools. So these are really tool relationships. This is why it's important to know kind of that Eco goes on in the background, but we're going to start with the easier tools. So next week, we'll talk about MyTree planting and design, and we'll kind of go from there. So all the time when we start to present that this is a suite of tools, we get questions about what tools should I use? And I try a lot because it's really challenging because all of you work in really diverse locations. You have diverse questions that you're asking of the tools. You may be a teacher who just wants to use it in the classroom. You may have really in-depth questions about how the air pollution benefits interact with human health. So those are kind of a wide range of users and ways to use the tools. So I tried to come up with this graph of kind of where the easier to use tools are and the more challenging to use tools. And, as you'd sort of expect, the more challenging to use ones actually have more flexibility and more results you can get out of them. And again, the ones here that the names are in brown, those are going to be our individual tree tools. And the ones that are in green are going to be our top-down canopy tools. So among those easier to use ones, we'll talk about MyTree planting and design next week. So we'll do demos of all of those next week. The more challenging tools, Canopy is going to be one of those top-down tools, and Eric will cover that in week 3. Landscape is another top-down tool. It has a ton of data in it, so it gets, again, to that more challenging, but there's a whole lot more flexibility about what you can do with iTree Landscape. So I'll probably return to this graphic a few times as we go through the tools, just to orient you to kind of where we are and kind of the level of difficulty and what you can do with the tools as we go through. But I did want to go in just a little bit of a deeper dive into some of the science, just to give you a little bit more background on where these estimates come from, because lots of times people will go through an iTree tool and they'll get their numbers, they'll get an estimate of ecosystem services and how many dollar that tree, the benefits it's providing, how much it's worth, but they won't really know where it comes from. So it makes it a little challenging to sort of talk to other people, especially anyone who's a little skeptical. So we'll try and give you a little bit of better understanding in the next few slides here. I'm just going to focus on one benefit, the air pollution benefit. How does iTree actually estimate how much air pollution a tree is taking out of the atmosphere, and how does it put a monetary value on that? So again, we go back to our individual tree measurements. If you measure things like the tree's DBH and species and those crown parameters, this is all getting at that tree structure. For the purpose of air pollution, the thing that really drives that benefit is leaf surface areas. That's what we're trying to estimate. So within iTree, if you have DBH and species, we have equations in the background that'll predict how large that tree crown is. So one of those measurements is going to be tree height. You don't have to write down these equations. Again, I get the kind of unenviable task of talking about the science here, but this is an equation that we have in iTree to estimate the height of a red maple tree based on its DBH. So this allows us another input into our models about how much leaf surface area that tree might have. So in this case, our 18-inch red maple, we estimate it's about 70 feet high, 70 feet tall. So how does that feed into the models? Well, we're trying to estimate how big the tree's crown is. So that's the volume that has leaves in it. So knowing where the top of it is going to be important, knowing where the crown base is going to be important, how wide, all those things can feed into the iTree models. And we come up with an estimate of the crown surface area. So that feeds then into our model of how much leaf surface area that tree has. Again, you don't need to write down this equation with the natural log of leaf area and all these other parameters, but this is how it works inside the model. We've got these equations that are going to predict for our 18-inch red maple, how much leaf surface area do we have to interact with air pollution. So in this case, for our red maple, if you want to go ahead and make sort of a guess, how much leaf surface area do you think it has? And again, leaf surface area, we're just taking all the leaves. Imagine taking all the leaves off the tree, laying them on the ground and measuring the square footage or how many square meters that leaf area would cover. So in the case of our 18-inch red maple, we feed all those parameters into the model. We come up with about 5,800 square feet of leaf surface area. So that's about 1/10 of an acre, a little more than 1/10 of an acre of leaf surface area from this one red maple tree. So that's how we get to structure. And since this is iTree, we're going to go structure, function, and value. And you can sort of think of how this might work. I mentioned we have our species database, and that's going to tell you different things about different species. They're going to have different crown shapes. They're going to have different densities of leaves within that crown. So if you're sort of thinking here, if we've got 3 different trees, we've got an eastern white pine, a honey locust, and a northern red oak. If we had all of these trees with an 18-inch diameter, sort of which one do you think would provide the most leaf surface area? And I think these pictures sort of give it away a little bit, but if we were to run all of these through the iTree Eco model, we'd come up with the most leaf surface area for our northern red oak. And you see that it's pretty significantly higher than our honey locust, which honey locust is a tree that we plant pretty commonly in street tree. It's pretty hardy. Maybe it grows a little faster than that northern red oak, so it might get up to that leaf surface area a little faster. But you can see that it's going to provide for the same size tree a little bit less air pollution removal benefits. Then the eastern white pine sort of in the middle. But the important thing to remember with the eastern white pine is that it's evergreen. So it's going to have those leaves or needles on all year. So it's going to provide benefits over a longer period of time. And all this is estimated within the iTree tools. So that's how we get to structure. Step 2, function. So how does that leaf surface area interact with that air pollution? And for air pollution, again, we have those hourly measurements everywhere that iTree works. So we're doing some gas exchange. We're taking in some of those pollutants. That would be nitrogen dioxide, ozone and sulfur dioxide are exchanged through the leaf surface and taken out of the atmosphere. Then we have ones that are just deposited. So we have a lot of surface area, just like a sponge soaks up a lot of water because it has a lot of surface area. A tree soaks up a lot of things like particulate matter and carbon monoxide because it has a lot of surface area. So that's going to interact too with the weather data. So all of this is going on in the background of iTree. For every hour of the day, it's going to say, this is how much particulate matter I have in the air. If it's really windy, that particulate matter is just going to stay in the air. It's not going to fall out onto the trees. If that wind speed goes down, then the particulate matter is going to be on the leaves. If we then get rain, it's going to be washed out of the system. So that's what's happening with that function of how that leaf surface area is interacting with the air pollution to actually provide the benefit of taking air pollution out of the air. So that's how we get that function estimate. And you can see this is actually a result from iTree Eco. This is based on an inventory of trees in Grand Rapids, Michigan. This is the monthly removal of that particulate matter. So that's that air pollution, that's kind of fine soot and dust. This is how much is removed every month of the year. And you can sort of see, kind of as you'd expect, that in the winter months, you get less removal because there's not as many leaves on the trees than in the summer months. And this is how many pounds are being removed every month for this year in Grand Rapids based on the trees they entered. So again, that's the structure. Now we need to get to our monetary value. And the way we estimate monetary value for air pollution in iTree is that we use something called BenMap. And this is a model from the EPA that estimates, based on how much pollution is reduced in the air and the number of people around to breathe that cleaner air, how do we avoid adverse health outcomes? So how do we avoid things like asthma incidences, or in this case, this is an example of hospital admissions. So if you've got 1 million people in your city and you reduce the air pollution by 2 or 3%, how many hospital admissions are you eliminating? And then what's the value of those hospital admissions? So we have a whole lot of health outcomes that we can estimate this for using this EPA BenMap model. And again, as input, we need to know that local census data. So how many total people live nearby? What's the population density? And what's the population by age? We know that older folks and younger folks are more likely to have adverse health outcomes. So we can estimate all of that within iTree Eco and within the other iTree tools. And finally, we put a monetary value on it. So again, this is coming out of iTree Eco, and I know somebody asked about health outcomes. So this is specific to air pollution removal by trees, but we have these health outcomes within iTree Eco based on that reduction in air pollution. So we estimate, we're going to reduce 112 acute respiratory symptoms during that calendar year, 88 asthma exacerbations during that calendar year, and put a monetary value on those improved health outcomes. So all of that goes on within iTree Eco. It's used to come up with those monetary values that show up in all our tools for air pollution removal. So again, that's that structure function value, just digging in kind of maybe deeper than some folks wanted, but I really think it's important to understand that there is a whole lot of science going on in the background of iTree that supports these estimates. And I think what Robert said, that we've got now science and data to support our truth that we know the trees provide benefits. This is that science and data that helps support that truth, that we are putting trees on the landscape that are providing benefits to the people who live there. So just a couple quick points to kind of wrap up the science of iTree. It's important to note that this is based on research from a whole lot of different researchers, where we get these equations for relating tree diameters to heights or crown widths, and how we get that leaf surface area, where that BenMap model comes from. This is dozens of different researchers feeding into the iTree tools, researchers from all different organizations. So we mentioned some of those up front. The Forest Service is definitely a big source of most of the research, but they work with a lot of partner organizations and universities to round out this data, especially when we start talking international. We get a lot of data from folks outside the US as well. And this research is always going to be updated. So we will come up with better models for estimating that leaf surface area or how it interacts with air pollution. And those will be integrated into the tools over time. And in all cases, our estimates are generally conservative. So if you ever sort of have trouble supporting these tools or supporting the numbers that come out of them, In all cases, we're always being a little bit conservative, assuming that it's a little better to err on the side of being conservative, maybe underestimating the benefits just a little bit, rather than overestimating or overpromising. It just makes for, and trees do so much that, underpromising is still going to be huge benefits for your community. So as far as where you can find more information, I just went for that air pollution removal. But for all our benefits, you can find the same information of how they're estimated in our Understanding iTree document. This is a really nice omnibus collection of all the research we have that supports the iTree tools. It's got lots of really nice tables in here. This one is showing the various ecosystem services that we estimate across various tools and how they interact with the measurements that you might make in the field. So by providing species and DBH, you can see which estimates that's going to impact when you start to look at the ecosystem services. So just because I go through all this science and it all seems really challenging, I do want to show you just real quickly, and we're going to dive into this more in coming weeks, that we can make iTree really easy. So I'm just going to show you the easiest to use, or one of the easiest to use iTree tools, and that's MyTree. And again, we'll do a demo of this in more depth. Dr. Dave will actually do it next week. But this is what MyTree looks like. So I'm just at mytree.itreetools.org. Or if you're on the iTree homepage, it's our first tool, and you can get to it by clicking right here. It's really nice to use on a cell phone, so I'm going to sort of resize my browser here to look a little bit like a cell phone. And I'm just going to show you how it works real quick. Again, we'll do this kind of slower in more detail next time, but if you click on Get Started, as with all our tools, it wants to know where you are. So I'm going to go ahead and use a tree outside my office in Philadelphia. And this is our office building here. And right out front here, it's actually in the shade here. I'm going to click on this tree. This is a elm tree out front of our office. And it just wants to know some details. So it needs to know our species. We've got some sort of simple categories here, but I know the actual species of this. It's an American elm. So I can type that in here and click on that. And you can switch between common names and scientific names. As I mentioned before, as with all our tools, it's going to want to know something about that tree's condition. It's in good condition. How big the tree is, that trunk diameter. In this case, it's 4 inches. And how much sun it gets. You could see in that image it was already in the shade, so we'll go with partial sun since it's pretty close up against the building. I'm going to skip this, is it within 60 feet of a building for now, but that's how you would get those energy benefits. And from there, I can just click on Add More Trees or Get Results. And so we've taken all that science of iTree Eco, everything it takes to estimate things like that air pollution removal, and we've sort of distilled it down to where I can get to an estimate for my one tree out front of my office over the next 20 years. What are the ecosystem services it's going to provide? And you can see over that 20 years, this one tree, which is starting out pretty small at 4 inches, is going to provide $136 worth of benefits. And this is just those core ecosystem services that iTree estimates. So this is carbon dioxide uptake, stormwater mitigation, and air pollution removal over those 20 years. If I had done that distance and direction to the building, it would have provided energy benefits and larger monetary benefits for that as well. So you can see just real quickly, you can get to these science-backed estimates of the benefits that trees provide in just a minute or two using a tool like MyTree. So hopefully that at least whets your appetite to come back next time when we're actually going to do demos of MyTree and iTree planting and iTree design. But as we wrap up this session, whoops, go back to my slides here for a second. I just want to get you thinking a little bit about how you might use iTree in your work. So that's really our goal across the academy, is that by the time you get to the end, you'll be able to say, which one of the iTree tools do I want to use? How does it fit in the work that I do? And how can it hopefully make that work easier and a little more impactful? So we really start with this idea that if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. So how do you get an idea of what your forest looks like, what your community's forest or your community's trees looks like? So this can be things like knowing where your canopy is, understanding who owns the trees. Are your trees on public property or private property? That can really impact how you manage it. and how those tree benefits are being delivered to people. We can dive into things like species diversity. More diverse species populations are going to be more sustainable and more resilient to things like pest and disease and climate change. We can also look at things like species size and age class distributions. Do you have a lot of small stature trees providing relatively small benefits? How do you go from there to larger stature trees providing larger benefits? So iTree can do all these things and a whole lot more. And of course, with all that, you're taking the structure of your forest, and iTree is going to help you understand how that goes from structure to understanding how that impacts the benefits that trees provide and who those benefits are being provided to. So we'll dive into a whole lot more of that going forward. But iTree really provides lots of opportunities. So, you know, we are going to introduce all the tools, but there are lots and lots of ways to use these tools. There's lots and lots of ways to use the data about tree benefits, the magnitude of the benefits, how the benefits are distributed on the landscape, and how different trees provide different levels of benefits. So this can range all sorts of topics, and we're going to touch on all of these as we go through the rest of the academy. That you can use this to integrate into urban forest policies around all sorts of things: sustainability, equity, climate, resiliency, air quality, public health, stormwater. All of these things can include results from an iTree project. It can help you manage your forest resources more strategically. So how do you maximize the benefits that trees provide? iTree can help you with some of that decision making. Again, you can advocate with data, so you can have hard numbers. How many trees do I have? How much leaf surface area do I have? How much benefits are they providing? You can talk about preservation and health of trees. Maintaining big trees on the landscape is always going to provide more benefits than taking out those big trees and replacing it with small trees, because they're going to take a long time to catch up to what those bigger trees are doing. So if you can maintain the health and large trees on your landscapes already, you're going to do much better. That feeds into things like sustainable development. You can do things like provide support for green industry jobs. So we know that more and more folks are using iTree and green industry work to support the work that they do. And we'll talk some about how that's working as we go through the academy as well. And lots of folks are just using the iTree tools for education. What are the benefits that trees provide? You can talk to education in a classroom environment, talking to students, or outside a classroom environment if you're standing out under some trees, or you can use it for community engagement. So these are all sorts of ways that you can engage your community using the iTree tools. And I'm just going to go through one real quick example. This is from hopefully provide a little bit of inspiration going forward. This is from a grad student project. This is from Corey Bassett. This is her master's project at the University of Pennsylvania. She measured all the trees on her college campus at UPenn and put them into iTree. She measured these trees here. This is the Palestra. This is a historic basketball stadium on Penn's campus. And these are London plane trees out front here. There are 6 of them. This is what it looked like back in the 50s. And this is what it looks like today. This is a huge green infrastructure project. They've got rain gardens down here. This is a stormwater cistern here. And here are these London planes that they maintained through all that time and all that construction. And what Corey found was that these 6 London planes that they did all that work to maintain through that construction, these store about 14,000 pounds of carbon and continue to sequester 470 pounds of carbon every year. By comparison, that's the same amount of carbon, or close to the same amount of carbon, as in the smallest 1,300 trees on campus. So these 6 trees are doing the same amount of ecosystem service work as the smallest 1,300 trees. So this story helped lead to the folks who do a lot of the building on campus, talk about tree preservation. How do we keep our healthy large stature trees up? And how do we get more of those large stature trees on campus? So this is a way to influence policy, at least on that campus. And we'll see lots of examples like this as we go through the course. And in the homework, you're going to talk, there's a lot more about how to use iTree effectively. So this homework, we don't grade it or collect it, but it is up on the website, so you can check it out and go through the process. It'll get you more familiarity with the tools and help you start to think about how you can put iTree to work. And with that, I just want to step aside for 1 minute and give Dr. Dave Boloniars a chance to talk about ReGreen Springfield, who have provided some of the support so that we can continue to do these open academies. as we wrap up this first one. And I would want to thank everyone for showing up one more time. So Dave, I know I didn't give you a ton of time, but if you're on there.
No, that's
and
right. Great
say a
job,
minute.
Jason. Can you hear me?
Yep, I got you.
Okay, perfect. Hi, everybody. It's great to be here. I've been on the iTree team since its inception over a decade ago. Today, I work with at the University of Massachusetts and for the U.S. Forest Service. I'm an instructor in urban forestry. So Jason was just talking about education and community engagement. So working with the Forest Service, we also work with a lot of community groups. And one of the community groups we work with is in Springfield, Massachusetts, the birthplace of basketball. So international folks might even have heard of Springfield. And the idea is in Springfield, we work with a group called ReGreen Springfield, who is helping to fund this 2024 academy. So thanks to ReGreen Springfield, we're able to bring this to you. And the journey of ReGreen Springfield started back in 2011 when an EF3 tornado came in and basically traveled across the width of the city and damaged, and we lost about 11,000 public trees on public and private property, including street trees. And it severely impacted the landscape that we view and the environmental resiliency of the city. So since then, the city of Springfield, in concert with the U.S. Forest Service and ReGreen Springfield, has utilized iTree at the beginning to respond by estimating the lost ecosystem services of those trees that were lost. And since then, they were able to secure funding from the state and from the federal government, and they've replanted about 5,000 new trees across the city. So that's worked out really well. And then going beyond disaster recovery, iTree has been an integral part of ReGreen Springfield's programming for community engagement and education, utilizing programs like MyTree that I'll talk to you about next week. And then we'll learn about iTree Design and iTree Canopy. They've engaged nearly 3,000 students and community residents in Springfield over the last several years, looking at providing information on the structure, function, and value of the trees, but more importantly, introducing folks to the entire climate change issues, resiliency, and the idea of what you can do in your own local community to address climate change, regreen your neighborhood, and make cities more livable. And ReGreen Springfield works with after-school programs, summer camps, and a variety of other programming to reach out to the next generation of youth through a variety of mechanisms. But iTree always plays an integral role in introducing green space to the school-age children in the city. And then for 5 years, ReGreen Springfield and the Forest Service has worked with the University of Massachusetts Medical School to bring in second-year medical students into Springfield who work for 2 weeks. And over the last 5 years, they've completed 7 different iTree analyses in low-income environmental justice neighborhoods. So introduced into our future medical professionals and physicians and doctors, the idea of that connection between trees, public health, and environmental health. And then the last thing I'll just talk to you about is one of the cool things with iTree that we're able to use on a neat project. We're looking at transportation systems in Springfield on the network here in the year 2070 and 2080. And this is a design and research project that we're doing with Harvard Graduate School of Design, MIT, and Springfield's local government. And we've used iTree to calculate the ecosystem services of nearly 3 million new trees that will be planted in Springfield between now and 2080. So iTree has played an integral role in Springfield. My office is in Amherst, Mass. At the university, but we have a field station right down here in Springfield. It's the 4th largest city in New England, and you might get to know it a little bit better by some of the other presentations that we'll be giving. But the last thing that I'll just introduce is iTree landscape as a tool for looking at environmental justice issues, and we'll learn about that as we go. So looking at not only the environmental, but the social equity, the social components. And the final thing I'll say is your feedback is so critical to the success of iTree. We want to know your successes, and we also want to know your failures. We need to know what is good, what is bad. So as you go, we'll be continually reminding you that any feedback that you can give us on any of the programs goes a long way to making the programs better for all of us. So Jason, I'll end there. I look forward to seeing everybody in MyTree next week. And just this is going to be fun. And I hope to be going on your little journey here, and hopefully it will be a great one. Thanks.
Thanks, Dave. Yeah, and thanks to ReGreen too for also providing the support that they do. And I dropped the link to ReGreen in the chat if anybody wants to check out some of the work that they do that they put up on their website. But